Hey guys, we're back with another episode of Magic the Gathering, and the alligators.
It was a good try.
I
At least you
figured
tried.
A would have been a good place for
It's a
alliteration.
B. It's
Like-
all about B.
Is you gotta stick with the B's, huh? You do always
The
go for the
billowing
B's.
barmaid and the ball bag, and it's so many bees.
There's a lot
everywhere.
of B's, yeah.
And it bounces, you know,
It's a
it keeps
good,
going.
It's a good, yeah, I mean, it's a
Nicolas
plosive,
Cage
so
isn't
it's
a
a lot of
fan.
fun. Really? Nicolas Cage doesn't
Hey.
like bees.
He says no, not the bees all the time. I figured you would
Are
get
they
that
in
one.
his eye? Well, yeah, no, I did get it. I was kind of playing along with it. But,
Oh,
you
okay.
ruined
They're
the,
in
the
his
meta
eyes,
joke.
nose, mouth,
Yeah.
all of the
They're in
orifice.
his, in his things.
No, they're in his eyes. No.
Hmm?
No.
No,
They're in my eyes.
what? No.
What? No.
Oh, it's good. We have a lot of fun here on Magic. We enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, fun heroes in Magic.
I want to make a montage of all the stupid references we make of their source material, just back to back.
Okay, so
Oh, this is
Magic
a
for
disaster.
some reason is reading my controller, which is great. So
Oh yeah, mine has been doing that lately too. Actually, it just randomly decides buttons are a thing now.
they must have patched it or something. Well, I could play it with the controller. It probably wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but
It's how
It
we used
might
to
be
play
the
it.
worst
So
thing in the
cheap.
world,
Oh,
actually.
it may well be the worst thing in the
It
world.
may be
yeah.
really bad.
It's possible.
Could be the worst thing. Actually, no, I played it on. It was pretty intuitive when I played it on the Xbox 2012.
Yeah, I've played it too. It's not bad.
It was originally designed to be played on Xbox, but that doesn't mean they did it right.
That's
Mhm.
true. Yeah, I mean this one's
That's-
designed for an iPad.
Right. And we
Which-
can still play it with a mouse and keyboard.
So the reason I was telling them that I found out about the Pokemon trading card game online because they just came out with their iPad version today that is linked to your desktop version, and I was like, oh wait, like I was watching the trailer, I was like, oh that's cool, maybe I'll download that, and then the trailer's like sync with your desktop thing. It's like I didn't know it was out on the desktop, and then it led me to another like point of thinking, which was, they made a desktop version of the Pokemon trading card game. Make a fucking PC Pokemon. What are you doing? You obviously have already made a PC Pokemon trading card game. Why don't you make a PC Pokemon? Like if
I don't know
No.
if you're aware, but Nintendo owns that franchise, and
Yeah.
they're not
Well, then how
very
did they
happy
make the?
about
They should have.
anything else.
Why'd they make the PC Pokemon trading card game then?
You know, Nintendo works in strange ways, Rob. I'm not gonna.
Yeah,
vouch
we
They
for
don't
really
it.
do.
question Nintendo, and anytime you do, it's a problem. You just let Nintendo do its work, and then you figure it out afterward.
Oh fucking Jesus! Oh, okay, cool. That's the great. So there's vibration now on my controller. Awesome. All right. Love this game. This game's fantastic. Anyway, yeah. No, but like seriously, like, can we talk about how much money we would all pour into a Pokemon MMO? Like, I would spend.
Not much. I wouldn't really.
Really?
I would. I'd put a lot into it. I would put my money where my mouth is.
I'd put so much money.
Yeah.
I just don't do MMOs anymore. Is the thing. It's not really about Pokemon or not. I'd like a Pokemon
but,
PC
like-
game. I would probably do that.
Yeah, but like a Pokemon MMO would be, just a Pokemon, but there's just massively multiplayer online or whatever.
Even just a multiplayer one where
yeah,
you could just
yeah,
play
totally.
and it'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Because I mean that's like that's how the show does it. The show has like he's always got a bunch of
Yeah.
friends with him. They're adventuring and shit. I want to adventure with a friend in Pokemon.
Yeah,
Come on.
exactly. That would be so cool. Especially with like live battles and stuff, and like, oh god, it would be so fucking
Well,
cool.
I don't even think MMO is the right way to look at it. I think it would be more like Dark Souls, where there's just you instance the game based on where your geolocation is. So when there's people playing it near you, they'll just be in your area sometimes,
Yeah, no,
and you can
Yeah,
just
that could
choose
be
to
cool.
duel them or walk around with them or whatever you're gonna do.
Yeah, that could be cool.
I feel like
would-
a more grandiose Pokemon would be really cool too.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm looking
Well,
for, really.
Ultimately, that's I think what my ideology would take me toward as well. Is you want the Pokemon with all the island land masses available at once, and all of the Pokemon that have ever been in all the generations can be collected in this one game, and you get your ultimate dex or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, totally. Exactly. That's what I would. That is exactly what I would.
But
love.
multiplayer doesn't factor into that for me. I could do that without anybody else.
I mean, I could, but it would be great to just be able to play it with with my friends. Like, I would just like to play it online with friends and explore this world, the Pokemon world, have friendships, form teams if I wanted to, be a bad guy, you know, be like make my own Team Rocket, or make, you know, become a gym leader. Like, how cool would that be if you could figure out, you could do a thing where you could have player gym leaders, and the way it would work is like it just takes your team, whatever team you input, and then players will be able to play against your team.
I think you're giving them too much credit. I don't think they'd be capable of adding this many good features, because I've been playing Destiny lately, and the amount of player interaction as it pertains to just general walking around is basically just dancing. That's it.
Yeah, there's no
other players, they just dance, and sometimes they'll walk with you for a second and shoot at something, but they almost always immediately just leave.
I don't know why that game had to be an MMO. I feel like there's just no reason for it at all.
That game could have just easily been like a Diablo-y kind of thing where you play with.
I don't know what it is.
Is it? I thought you could play online with a bunch of people.
You can. I actually went and redeemed there's a PSN or PS Plus 14-day free trial that I went and redeemed just so I could see if it made any meaningful difference. And when you're trying to go to different parts of the map, there's like certain parts that are locked off unless you're on PS Plus. So they're like meant for public events, I guess. And I've only done one of those, and it really just didn't matter to me at all. I would much rather they just kept that to like a multiplayer area and just left the game as just a single player campaign and then let you do what you want.
Right.
This is weird. Why are we doing this?
Destiny to me was just like, it felt like it was so average to me. Like, there was nothing I think
it's boring as hell,
wrong.
But I still want to play it anyway for some reason. It's really weird. Like, I want to just get all the loot, but I don't really have any investment in the gameplay itself.
That's the thing for me, is that the loot wasn't really getting me that much. Like, I felt like it was so limited. Maybe that's because I play Borderlands. I really like Borderlands and how not limited Borderlands is in terms of loot.
Right. Yeah, it's super limited. And there's also just not very much to see. Like, each planet is basically just one area that's really big, and they just have you walk back and forth across the area over and over again. And all the missions
kind of boring as well.
They're all boring. It's just like a bunch of bases, sci-fi generic shit scattered around all over the landscape, and all the missions boil down to this little like cube that you talk to tells you we need to go to this place and we need to scan something. And then you go and you scan it, and then 5 waves of enemies come out, you kill all of them, and then you win. And then it teleports you back to your spaceship, and that's the whole game.
It's extremely generic, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds kind of boring.
I don't get the hype. Like, I keep playing. I think I've put about 10 hours in trying to figure out what people are excited about, and I don't see it yet.
Like, I even played the multiplayer, and the whole time I was playing the multiplayer, I was like, this just feels like a really unbalanced Halo. Like, I don't...
Right, and that doesn't help much either, that the game just basically is Halo.
Yeah, it just... I felt very strange to me that the same team, or at least the same company that made Halo, which is one of the best competitive FPSs, I think, around, you know, up there with Counter-Strike and all that. I wouldn't say it's better than Counter-Strike, but that's another argument entirely. But I like that they made this PvP system in Destiny because it's so unbalanced. There's so much that just kills you in one hit. It feels so hectic, and not in a good way. Like, Call of Duty is hectic in a good way. Like, the Destiny is just like, there's so much shit flying around.
Yeah.
Not to mention the story, which is just all of the buzzwords that don't have any connection to any actual words, just arbitrarily everywhere. I tweeted a list of all the words that I was listening to them say to me, that as if they had any meaning to me as a player. But it's just like, no, space is big, everything's big, we don't know anything about anything, and here are all the words that we have. There's lots of words, and they mean something, but I don't care if you know what they are.
Yeah. That game did not look very interesting to me, to be honest with you. I didn't...
I thought that because it had so much money poured into it, and because it was Bungie, that there would be something that was maybe missing. But it was really average. Like I said, there's nothing inherently like wrong. Oh, protection from white balls. I'm smart.
Protection from white balls.
Yeah. Well, I guess I deserve that. Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything Nick said with that. It's a disappointment, I believe.
Great, my game is like flashing in and out. Like, all the things on the side are just like flashing. It's like, do you want a controller? Oh, you don't want a controller. Oh, you don't want a controller. Do you want a controller? I don't know if you know. I'm gonna give you a controller.
You're making it sound like an excited dog.
It is, because it's flashing up a storm. Yeah, Destiny seems kind of whack. But the thing is, I think if you did a Pokemon MMO, if you did it right, it could be cool. I think it could be cool.
No, I agree. I agree completely. I feel like it could be
I don't think it matters if it's cool or not. People are gonna buy it whether or not it's good.
pretty much, yeah.
Same as Destiny.
That's true, actually.
So, obviously they're not gonna really care if they know they've already won just by putting the name on it.
Hmm.
Like, oh, what is this one single feature that you've wanted for all this time? We could just dangle that in front of you ad infinitum. Once they give it to you, they can't take it back away, right? So then they're going to be kind of pressured into making a lineage out of it too, which I'm not sure they're interested in.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Yeah, it's strange. It's a Doctor Strange love.
You're going to say it's seductive.
It is
Strange and seductive, the Pokemon
seductive.
MMO.
Yeah. It could be, sorry, I wasn't even really paying a terribly great amount of attention because I've been, thinking about
Beating it?
Yeah, I've been beating it pretty much.
Beat it.
Right.
Beat it.
Yeah, okay, well, I can't do anything about that.
I guess to transition to another game that people are talking about that I kind of wanted to talk about, the vanishing of Ethan Carter. Get a little bit of buzz on Twitter. I have to say that what I played of the game was very good. It's marketed as an atmospheric kind of mystery game, and it does that very well. Like going through it, it's very beautiful. It looks very, very pretty, and the way you kind of solve the mysteries is fun, and just everything about it is pretty good. But I got into about 2.5 hours into the game. And I will say this will be minor, very, very minor spoilers, I guess. If it's still my turn, thank you.
Sorry,
Appreciate that. Very, very minor spoilers, so mute the video now for the next minute if you don't want to be minorly spoiled. But there's a point in the game where enemies pop up, which was strange to me because the whole game had been played out for a very long time without that kind of premise. And the game doesn't really tell you that they're enemy. This is weird to me because I felt like it was actually good because the game doesn't tell you, oh, avoid these things, they're bad. You just kind of immediately think, oh, these are probably bad, I'm going to avoid them. And it's kind of scary in a good way. It's the good kind of scary that horror games tend to do, like Amnesia style. Amnesia never directly jumps out at you. It just terrifies you and things chase you. And it's not about jump scares. It's about the fear horror aspect. And so that it was doing that, but then for some reason it felt like it had to do more, and it kind of just for no reason jumps out at you and jump scares you and then kills you, and then you start over. And I hadn't even really done anything wrong. I hadn't walked into one of the guys. I was avoiding them properly, and it just did that, and I felt very, very cheated for some reason. And it's soured me extremely on the game because it felt extremely cheap to just throw a jump scare in a game that felt like it had no reason really to do that.
Yeah.
It's just a marketing decision a lot of the time. There's a certain demographic of people who really enjoy that kind of gameplay, and I think they probably wanted to work that in at some point. But
yeah,
since I haven't played it, I can't really comment.
It just felt cheap to me because the game had just not done that. Like, it was so away from that kind of style. Like, there were so many points prior where it could have done that, and it didn't. It just had the atmosphere to it, and it was very good. And jump scares are so easy. They're so easy.
There are ways, though, that I think jump scares can be useful, and that's like, I've been playing The Long Dark, which is like a Canadian survival wilderness game where you're just stuck in the middle of a snowy area and you gotta just live. So, like, the big premise is everything's super atmospheric, you're just lost, trapped in the middle of nowhere, and all you gotta do is just search for stuff so you can just make a little bit of a survival point for yourself. And then, so I was in the middle of the dark, and it was snowing, and it was scary, and I was like, not doing very well health-wise. And freaking wolf just like jumps on me out of fucking nowhere.
Yeah.
And just starts biting my face. And I'm like, that was terrifying. And that was legit a jump scare. But at the same time, I didn't really get bothered by it.
Uh-huh.
It was relevant.
Yeah. I can see that. I still feel like jump scares like just inherently are easy. Like, go click on like a jump scare link in like a Twitch chat, and that'll jump scare you, and that's just a picture and it screams at you. Like, that's how easy jump scares are.
In horror movies, that's actually a big problem for me, is that horror has devolved to a point where a lot of the times, at least in American horror, although American horror has been getting a little bit better, but it had been bad for like 20 years. What is this thing? Oh, Jesus. Yeah, it had been getting better, and then They do all those jump scares, and it's like that's not scary, really.
Right.
It's not like it's not actually. You're
Not
not
to
actually
mention shaky
scaring
cam
me.
and jump cuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing that made me, I think, the most angry about this game that I talk about is that I was already scared because I was trying to avoid these guys and not get caught by them. They already succeeded in scaring me. The only thing they did after that was shoot adrenaline up in my body and made me want to like stop playing the game.
Yeah.
And like I get that some people do enjoy. I mean, that's why people play like Outlast and things like that. They like jump scares. People like watching people be scared. I get that, but in a game that was trying to be something not that, I don't understand the reasoning behind putting it in there at all.
Yeah.
It was so like I said, I don't know if it was a bug. I feel like it might even be a bug because I didn't run into one of these guys. It just happened, and it felt very souring.
Yeah, that sucks.
I feel like if you're getting into the realm of supernatural anything, jump scares just are kind of a part of that territory, whether or not that's actually true.
It's not necessary though. Like
it's just unnecessary. Like I said, I was already scared.
Like afraid, you don't need jump scares. Like The Exorcist, for instance, considered one of the scariest horror movies of all time. I agree. Doesn't do any jump scares. Doesn't need any jump scares.
I don't necessarily mean that they have to be in the game, but I think the way the market is right now kind of tells it that it has to be in the game. It's a bullet point in a way.
Uh-huh.
It's like some people wouldn't consider something a horror game if it doesn't have this, and I don't think that there's any basis in rationality for believing that, but I kind of feel like there's a bunch of people that would make that argument. Or that they're so numb to every other type of atmosphere that that's the only thing that can actually rattle them a little bit. And maybe they just look at that as like a part of the character progression or the plot progression.
Protection from dragons.
Oh, that's so bullshit. Oh, that's so bullshit.
Yeah. Anyway,
I lost.
Wasn't there like a Disney movie called something Ethan Carter?
I don't know.
No, that's John Carter. It was actually pretty
John
good.
Carter.
Oh.
It was pretty good.
I honestly thought Ethan Carter was a movie tie-in for John Carter when I first heard the name.
Oh man, that sucks. I actually had a chance at winning if I had drawn a land any of the past 4 turns, but I didn't, so.
Right.
That sucks. That's
Just put your giant out. Just put your giant out. You'll be fine. You'll still win.
I don't have them. but yeah,
What?
no, I don't have any lands.
Oh,
That's
he's
the
bluffing.
Past, like,
He's just bluffing.
Past like 3 games, I just haven't had any lands ever. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's the giant.
I think it's fling.
Huh.
He's gonna fling the giant,
Fling something.
and then it'll do damage to everything.
If it is fling, though, I don't know what it can fling.
3 damage to all of my creatures would completely put me out of existence.
Well, he has to do something this turn, or you both die.
Oh my god. Okay. Choose a creature to sacrifice. There we go. It's very hard to activate this ability, by the way.
I don't know. Yeah, sometimes hovering over abilities, it just doesn't want to go for some reason.
Yeah.
By the way, commenters, before you get upset, today was the day I felt like trying to be assertive in my attacking patterns, and you see what that got me? This is why I always play a passive role in these games. It always seems to work out better that way.
To be fair, I added an extremely good draw this game.
Like, I was able to do like 15 damage to you in one hit, and you just killed it all.
I think he
It
has
was
some
nothing.
like buff all attackers thing or something. I don't
I don't know
like
what the fuck his tokens keep doing. Oh, he's sacrificing it.
Ah, okay, I got
And
it.
then he's gonna fling it.
Yeah. If only it had protection from red.
Yeah, alright. That keeps me alive. Glorious.
Keeps you alive. Actually, no, it doesn't.
Does it not?
No, I can attack you with all 4 and you die.
Oh, yeah, I think
Nobody
you're
see that
correct.
coming. What a wacky world.
And now I can't.
Yep.
Whoa!
I'm glad you told me that because I wouldn't have paid attention.
Oh,
Actually,
yeah.
I would have been able to deal with it either way because that's an instant card. But still, yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna kill Nick just to get that over with,
That's fair. Yeah.
and then
Okay.
next turn I can kill you, Rob.
Yeah.
So.
Theoretically, yes.
Really should put flying in all of my decks, apparently.
Flying is really important, yeah. don't ever see a reason not to have at least a couple.
I kind of thought flying was like one of those attributes that's like part of the strategy of a deck.
This. Luckily, I think you'll have to sacrifice enough that I will stay alive. Maybe.
Perhaps.
I don't know actually how this maths out.
Is there any reason? Gain life. No, I think I just do this. I don't think there's any reason not to.
All right, chip away at him. 28 health to go.
I think this is good. I'll just be safer. I don't know.
You got 1 card and 4 or 5 land untapped.
Yeah.
So it'll probably be a kill card.
Okay.
Interesting.
The game broke.
Did it?
There. No, it was
Oh,
for
no,
a
okay.
second.
Did it give you controllers to use?
Give me the card I need. Da da da. You suck.
All right.
That's a blocker.
It's annoying that you have a blocker. I'm sad about that. I
I
have
can't
2
block.
health. This is hard. Game is hard.
Ooh.
You have 4 more than I do.
Okay, that's actually really good.
Oh, I see what you can do. Yeah.
Scale them in. Deploy.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Hey, Rob, have you made a Steam Curator account thing yet?
I did,
Or a
yep.
page yet? Oh,
Mhm.
nice. Should tell people to go to it. I didn't even know you had one.
Yeah, it's actually a pinned tweet, and I should tweet more about it though. But yeah, it's cool.
I don't understand how often pin tweets really are that useful, because who goes to your account, really?
I don't know, yeah, but I should tweet more about it and message more about it. But yeah, I have a curator page.
It's kind of like having friends on your main page channel list on YouTube. It's like, all right, people see those pictures, but who's clicking on them, really?
I hate this game.
Yeah, I'm not letting that happen. Okay, all right. Okay. Works out, I guess, because I could get him back. Why didn't he have haste? Bloodgas has haste as long as an opponent has 10 or less life. Okay.
Well, I'm gonna need something here.
Yeah.
Just Estus.
Yeah, you could just S this.
I could ask this.
You could S this.
Heyo.
I've made that joke so many damn times.
Really helpful.
What is that? Oh, it's a landy thing.
That brings me.
Oh no.
Okay.
I think the new
gonna
last
do it?
Dark Souls 2 DLC came out
Fuck
today,
no.
actually.
I don't know how this works actually.
I think other than Crazy Mike, I don't think I know a single person who's still playing Dark Souls 2.
Yeah.
Man versus game.
Oh,
doesn't-
yeah.
The dude doesn't not play Dark Souls 2.
Please let me activate the ability.
1, 2,
I
3.
just keep hearing bad things about the DLC, that it's like really frustrating and the boss is badly designed.
Oh. Okay.
That's fine. Do I win?
I don't know.
I think I win.
7.
How can you not win?
I don't know
He
when.
has no cards.
I don't know when lifelink works though. What's that? That's 9. It depends. I can't do that. Do that. I think the lifelink goes first. If not, I lose.
Well, let's find out. Oh, that's good. Okay, no, I win. Glorious.
No, I don't think you do. Yeah, I live.
What?
The lifelink goes through first.
Wait, you had negative health. No. You had negative health, and then it gave you
Not
back
on my
the life.
screen.
Yeah,
On
well,
my screen,
on
I
my
paused
screen,
it.
all right, well, I lose, I guess. That's fine.
Yeah, I
pretty much
had
lose
no
either way.
idea.
Yeah, that's kind of
Yet
bullshit.
another
On my
game.
screen, it had negative. You had negative health.
Another game decided by us not knowing the
The
minutia
mechanics
of the
of Magic.
rules.
Well,
of the-
yeah.
I
exactly.
thought it did. I just wasn't sure. I was like the safe thing I could have done was block the 7/7, but my thing would have died and then I would have lost anyway. So I had to go for the hope that the thing is
Oh.
right thing.
It makes sense that lifelink would hit first, considering like what. Would
Yeah,
be
I guess it would be all
Well,
calculated
it
at the
did.
same
Well, see,
time.
on my screen, it didn't hit
Well, it's-
first. So
oh,
it's
you
not
know
a
what?
first
Because-
thing. It's even if you die from it, it'll give you back the life anyway.
Right.
Yeah, like it
So
doesn't
I
matter
think
how
it
much
all does
damage you
technically
have.
does it at the same time, so it's all
Yeah.
one big boom.
Right, exactly. Yeah, which I didn't
Is
Not
know.
counting.
combat not broken up into
Did I-
hierarchies of damage exchange?
First strike only, I think.
Yeah,
And
I think
then
that's the
double
only.
strike,
Oh.
that too.
That's the only situation, yeah. But yeah, no, that's unfortunate. Had I known that it would work that way, then I wouldn't actually have attacked with my 7/7. Which
It's okay, because Austin told you about that you needed another creature before or whatever, so
Mm-hmm.
both did each other favors there.
I think if you wouldn't attack with your 7/7, I block and kill the 5/6, but then I gain 7 life, and I would be looking a lot better at that point.
Yeah. Well, I
The
mean,
game
I
would
just
still go
probably
on from
wouldn't.
that
I
point.
probably wouldn't have attacked, is what it was.
Right.
Like I just wouldn't have attacked, because then, like, if you tried to attack me, I could just, sack my dragon for it, and then win.
So
But then you
close.
could also sack 7 health, which would take you down to 2. But I was down at 2 as well. So that would have been interesting. That's
If I
unfortunate. I
would've-
didn't know that's how that interaction happened.
Actually, yeah, sacking 7 life might have been good because I could have gotten the card, the enchantment that does damage for lifelink,
Mhm.
and then I've been able to destroy that. So yeah, it would have been interesting to see if I would have got that or not.
Yeah. It was a close game though.
Another good game.
Close game. I didn't understand how
Woulda,
that
coulda,
interaction
shoulda.
worked. Yeah.
Would, should have, could have.
Wish I
I
knew
do-
how that interaction worked. That sucks. Sucks
I-
fat ass.
Going back to what we were talking about, I do like the just the horror games that don't try to jump scare you. That's why I think Amnesia was so popular. I mean, of course, Amnesia got that stigma of being, the everyone plays it all over YouTube thing, but not counting that, it was very smart in how it tried to scare people.
Yeah.
Because
It
I don't
didn't jump scare you?
No, it did not. Like, I don't
The
think there's-
creature comes running after you all the time. Doesn't that count when you don't
No,
see it?
no,
coming?
that's- that's not a jump scare. That's just straight up terror. Like that.
No, when
that-
you don't see it and then it's right next to you, doesn't that count as a jump scare?
I wouldn't count that
If it-
because
It's not
the
scripted,
creature.
No.
Yeah, it's not scripted putting it there. Like, it's not jump in your face. Like, that's a jump scare. When the person making the game intends to have something pop very large into a large frame of the camera.
The other thing about, like, if you know a game is a jump scare game or a movie is a jump scare movie, it's very formulaic. It's very easy to tell. Like, I was playing Outlast, and it was like, oh, this thing doesn't do anything. I'll walk into the next room, and then after I go into the next room, I have to do a thing, and then, like, I streamed this, so, like, I called it out on stream, too. It's like, I go into the next room, and, like, oh, the only way back is through that area that I had just come through. I have to backtrack. Okay, so that guy that didn't do anything is gonna jump scare me, and he did, and I wasn't scared because it was like it's formulaic. It's like I know a jump scare is coming because that's just what the game does, and that's it's formulaic. It's cheap, and like for instance, movies that do it are really frustrating to me because a lot of them do it in like these awful ways. Like I think White Noise was a good example of like one that was just really bad. There's that shitty Michael Keaton movie. That came out in like 2005 or something, and like it would do this thing, the jump scare thing, but it would be like, very quiet for a while, and then all of a sudden, very loud crescendo music and a dog barks, and it's like, whoa, I jumped, that's great, but I'm not scared really because it's a dog. It's just a fucking dog. Like that didn't scare me. You haven't really achieved fear. You made me jump. Yes, that's
Right,
great,
right.
but that's
I
not.
agree with this, actually.
It's not going to make me memorable. It's not going to make it memorable, and it's not really inspiring any kind of fear. A lot of movies actually that do horror properly, inspire fear. I get like physically afraid, which is the whole point of a horror movie, right? Is that you're supposed to fear for your life irrationally because you're totally completely safe sitting in the movie theater or at home. But like the whole point is you're supposed to be afraid, I think actually I was watching Oculus, which is one of the newer movies, the horror movies that have come out, and I actually liked it. I think that movie did fear properly, where it was just like shit just gets really weird and really creepy, and it's like it's scary. It's scary, and it doesn't use jump scares. I mean, maybe there was a jump scare here and there. I don't know. I mean, like a lot of times things use that as a crutch, sort of like comedy movies have to throw in a joke every 5 minutes or so if there's not a joke, because it's a comedy movie. But for the most part, it doesn't rely on jump scares, whereas like a movie like White Noise completely does, and it's boring. It's like shitty. It's like there was another movie that actually just recently came out. I forget what it was, but it just came out. It was so stupid. It had a really cool premise. It was this guy. It was found footage, which is also kind of like, but
Yeah.
yeah, I really don't like found footage very much, but it can be done right. I will admit now maybe not when found footage first became really popular, but now I'll admit it can be done properly. It wasn't really done that well in this movie. But the premise was that, like, this guy was, like, down on his luck and whatever, and he wanted to prove that nothing supernatural was real, right? And it's like, oh, that's a cool premise. Like, he's going to jump through a bunch of different supernatural things, like Ouija boards and seances and stuff.
I bet they're all real.
Yeah, well, yeah, they end up being real, but
all of them.
But I mean, and that's fine. Like, that's the premise of the movie. That's fine. But the movie relied entirely upon jump scares, and it's like, you don't need to do that. And it was so bad because the way that they did it was that, like, the movie was running at like 20 decibels, and then the jump scares were like 80. So it was impossible to watch. Because, like, they were whispering the whole movie, and then, and it's just like, that's not scary. You haven't scared me. You're just fucking making me jump. That's not a thing. Yeah.
I know it's long past when you talked about this, but for the sake of the commenters, I feel, and also for the sake of consistency, I want to point out about Outlast. If you had mentioned the jump scare at the beginning when the drop corpse thing falls from the doorway, I would have been with you. But in the basement area where you said you had to restart the generator, there's no jump scare there. You just run through the dark.
I didn't say the generator. That's not the one that I was talking about.
You said a sealed off area, and then you had to go back. I figured that's what you meant.
No. The place that I meant was wheelchair guy. Yes, wheelchair guy. Wheelchair guy is who I'm talking about.
Okay, that's different. Yeah, that was totally different.
Exactly. Exactly. It's super formulaic. It's like you walk in, you go past the wheelchair guy, and I was fucking around with him, seeing if he's gonna scare me, and he wasn't. And I was like, okay, well, that's obviously a scary thing, so let's go on forward. And I go forward, go through the room and whatnot, and then it's like, okay, well, the only way back to where I need to go is I have to backtrack, walking right past wheelchair man. I bet he's gonna jump scare me. And he did. And it was just like, well, that didn't scare me.
That can work if they would have dragged it out way longer before they reveal the scary element.
Yeah.
Like, if that guy was there for, like, hours before anything happens, and then he's scary later, that could have worked.
There's a couple things that game actually does that are scary. Like, there are moments where it's like, oh, long creepy hallway filled with blood, and that's the only way to progress. Well, I guess I have to walk through there. That's creepy. Or, like, a character, like, sitting in a corner naked, like, scratching at the wall, mumbling things to himself. That's fucking creepy. That's scary. That, like, makes it atmospheric, and I'm afraid. They could have done that with Wheelchair Guy. He didn't have to, like, jump out and then they play a crescendo of the music, like, to make it louder than it was.
Yeah, if you have to add loud noise to your jump scare, it's probably already really shitty.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a it's a narrative crutch where you could do something way better, and it's sad because that's what people have grown up on in American horror, so that's what people expect.
Yeah, and that's honestly how I feel like the game's going right now too, is that people expect jump scares, and it's like, you don't have to have jump scares. Like, things can just be inherently scary.
Yeah, and you know what, though? Like, even so, I don't mind a jump scare here and there. Again, it is a narrative crutch. You can do it, I guess, from time to time if you need to. But for the most part, a lot of horror games, like, rely on jump scare. Like, that's the whole thing, and it's just...
There are horror games that is literally the point of the game. I feel like the pervasiveness of YouTubers at this point have trained people to believe that that's what horror means now.
Right.
That's honestly why I thought about it and playing this Ethan Carter game. I could be completely wrong. I'm just talking my ass at this point, but I feel like that mentality is why that jump scare is in
what
there.
I was trying to implicate before when I was saying that people are kind of trained on that, and it's a marketing and demographic decision to add it, because I feel like people don't understand it.
That's... Yeah, but I still don't think that like validates it, though, because like I said,
I never said it validated. I just said maybe that's why that decision was made.
It was just so weird to me because there's so many points in the game before then that could have jump scares, but that didn't. There's like one, like, you got to go into like this really dark corridor and you can't see anything. There's at one point there's this really cool church that you have to walk into, and you have to walk down this corridor, and it's really dark and scary. And it's like, I was scared. I walked through there. I got the thing I needed, but I was scared the whole time. Just because I thought, like, you didn't have to do it, and you succeeded. Like, it just felt so weird to me that after 2 hours of gameplay, now we're gonna have jump scares just because.
It also could have been to reinforce the fact that maybe sometimes scary shit will happen just to keep you more on edge.
But it was so late to me in the game. It's
the repercussion for scary shit.
I don't want to I don't want to spoil the game because I feel like it's a very story-driven game. But like the second I got to this area where this jump scare happens, I knew that there was a chance of jump scare. Like, I just like you could feel like the music stopped. There was no music
Right.
anymore, and the whole game has amazing music. I don't like the music in the game is fantastic, and it's dynamic. It changes depending on where you go. And then the music stopped, and I was like, all right, here we go. I feel like this is gonna be the jump scare time. But then I got like 10 minutes into the area, I got to the puzzle, and I was like, all right, so maybe I was wrong, and I'm happy because okay, I was wrong. So I got through there, and then I go even farther into that area, and then it got even more obvious that they were gonna do something, and then here's the enemy, and I was like, all right, if I go near that enemy, he's gonna scare me, I bet. And then I didn't even go near the enemy, and it scared me, and I was like, fine, fuck you. I don't know how to win. Ugh,
Yeah.
Couldn't they just be breaking the formula though? Because they don't want people to be able to predict everything that happens. And if you get into this mentality of, well, there won't be ever anything particularly crescendo-like, you'll go through the whole game just not expecting anything as far as repercussions. So they kind of had to tell you, well, maybe that happens sometimes.
Yeah, but you could do that in a different way. I mean, you could make it so that, like, hey, I have to walk through this area filled with enemies or something.
Yeah,
or
like that's what I was saying. I was already scared. Like I was already like they never told me to avoid these things. I just inherently was like these are probably bad, and I'm going to avoid them. And these are they're very sharp hallways with sharp turns, and they make scary noises when they appear. And I was like, all right, I'm scared. You got me. You did a good game. I will avoid these. And
Yeah, you know, actually,
I was punished for not. I didn't even fail avoiding them, but I was still punished by being scared.
I don't know if you guys have played Darkwood, but it was a Kickstarter game, and it was gonna be a procedurally generated horror roguelike, but they kind of scrapped it. Like it has some procedurally generated elements, I think, but it's not like a roguelike procedurally generated thing. Anyway,
Scripted now.
yeah, it's like pretty scripted, but there are some elements that are randomized. But anyway, so it's an isometric horror game, and which means top down, by the way, in case anybody doesn't know. But so that game actually does horror and scariness really well. In that, like, it doesn't actually really rely on jump scares, like, partly because the medium of, like, an isometric over-the-top game, jump scares don't really work, right? Like, you can't really do that
Unless you
properly.
break the fourth wall and just shove something in.
Yeah,
yeah,
jump
right,
scares-
yeah, exactly.
Jump
Yeah.
scares inherently have to like take up like a
Right.
over 50% of the screen to be like a jump scare.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But and I think that really serves the game in that it can't really do jump scares. So it is really actually creepy. It's creepy and scary to walk through the game, and you know there are parts in it where like, you know, that's what I like in a horror game. And I don't really like horror games because I do actually get really scared from them, so I don't really
Me
play
too.
it. But when I do
I don't.
play them, what I like is like, oh hey, I have to go this way, and there's
And I
gonna
don't
be
want
some
to.
fucked up shit that I'm gonna see, and I don't really want to see it, but I'm gonna have to, and that's so much better than a jump scare to me, because in a lot of ways that's why it scares me more than a movie, because I don't really get scared from horror movies anymore, but I do get scared from video games. And I think the reason for that is that I have a level of autonomy in a video game where it's like, okay,
You have
in
to
order to progress
consciously
through,
go
yeah, exactly, and
into this dark
like
hallway.
I have to be the guy who doesn't turn around, right? Like I have to be the guy who walks up the stairs or splits up in the movie, right? I have to do that. I have to make that conscious choice to progress in the game. And that's scary. Like that's you know, that's a scary thing.
It's amazing that they leverage simply standing still as enough of a motivation to go forward. Because like your other option is turn around and walk away, where nothing will ever happen.
Right. Well,
right?
I mean,
like
that,
there's
that's
never any
effectively,
other
like,
option
Yeah, I mean
other than go forward.
That's effectively like the option of like, yes, you could also turn off the game, which is true, is a valid option. You could.
That's
I
what
want to
I
see
did
the horror
actually.
game where you can choose not to progress and do something completely different that's meaningful to the game in some way.
That'd be interesting, but I don't know how you'd do that really. I'd like a game where you can prepare yourself. That would be cool, and I think Darkwood is actually
Like put your
attempting-
arms up. Like what do you mean prepare yourself?
No, like maybe like you know, craft some shit before you go into this next area or something. Like if you spend some time in the area foraging, you could like make a torch, or you know,
Minecraft has
make
that.
Yeah, well, yeah, sort of. But
Minecraft's partially a horror game. Believe it or not.
Minecraft actually can be kind of scary. I haven't
Scares
played a
me
lot
more
of.
than most.
Yeah,
Yes,
I haven't played a lot of
Minecraft terrifies
Minecraft.
me.
Yeah, exactly. I haven't played a lot of. Yeah, and you know what? Minecraft doesn't use any jump scares. A lot of times it's just like you're walking through an area and it's just like, oh, that's some creepy shit, and I don't want to deal with that right now. I'm just gonna go back into my house.
I will say Endermen are kind of inherently jump scary sometimes.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
It's hard to set it up perfectly, but sometimes they'll get you really good.
Yeah.
I think this most scared I've ever been in a game was I was mining. I accidentally triggered an Enderman. He teleported away, and I was like, fuck. Because if you're deep in a mine and you trigger an Enderman and you get into like an open area and you're walking forward, he will jump up at you. Like he'll come back and he'll scare the shit out of you. And it's good because you know it's gonna happen, but you like I was trying to like trick it by like looking at the wall and moving sideways. I was like, I'm not gonna do it. And then I like 20 minutes. I swear to God, it was like 20 minutes later or something. I was like, all right, I think I'm good. I wasted enough time. I think I got far enough away, and I walked for like 15 seconds, and I get that finally, ooh, that good. I'm okay feeling. Bam, jumps up right in front of me. I literally screamed my balls off, and I paused the game, and it was awful.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the times in the dark I'd be mining and then a freaking skeleton archer would just nail me in the head.
Right, yeah.
What the hell?
Yeah.
Everything was quiet a second ago and all of a sudden I'm getting shot at.
Yeah. 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 I think horror can be done well, and I think even jump scares can be done well if they're put in the proper context. But my overall opinion is that they're used too much as a crutch, and it makes it, you know, yeah, it sort of invalidates their effectiveness when they use it as a crutch. Hey, Doctor Who is a good example of like there's some really creepy shit in Doctor Who, and they don't use jump scares I think pretty much ever in that show. But I've been legitimately scared of a lot of the things in Doctor Who.
Yeah, Weeping Angels.
Well, the Weeping Angels are the Endermen, so...
Yeah, right, yeah. Well, it's Weeping Angels, and then also that other Moffat episode in the Eccleston series with the, Are You My Mummy? That was actually fucking scary to me when I first watched that. Like, that was just creepy. It was just creepy shit. You know, and that's scary, and that's good. That's how you scare people. Like, you
the
make
mask,
them feel
though,
fear. Huh?
The mask for kind of Uncanny Valley stuff, like...
Yeah,
the effects definitely reared their head more than they should have in a way, and they became kind of transparently there.
Yeah, that's in a lot of Doctor Who though as well, where it's just the budget holds it back as far as how good it can do whatever it is attempting to do.
I want to go back to what I think is probably the best example of horror in a video game that I've seen done properly, and I'm sure a lot of people will agree with me or know this point, but going back to Amnesia, the original one, the water monster. I'm sure you guys have seen that. Like that is so done so well. Like it not only does it not even remotely jump scare you, what it does is you're in this water, you have no idea what's going on. Suddenly this cave is flooded for some reason, and you're just kind of swimming along. There's boxes around and things, and then you see something off in the distance splashing and coming towards you. How is that not inherently just terrifying when you're in a dark hallway and you don't know what it is? That's the key, is that you have no idea what it is, which is what a lot of the monsters in Amnesia are really good, because it's kind of ruined by the fact that so many people play them so often. But when you play it like alone by yourself for the first time, you can't really tell what the monsters are. They're very confusing and weird, and that adds to the mystery and the scariness, because it's easier to be scared of something that you don't know than what you do know.
I actually I don't know if you guys ever play Arkham Asylum, the first Batman game in the Rocksteady series.
Full Let's Play of it.
Okay, so you remember the Killer Croc area?
Oh yeah.
That shit, when I actually played it for the first time, like when I've gone back and played it again, because I beat the game like 2 or 3 times now, but when I've gone back and played it again, it's not scary because I know what's happening. But like when I first played it, that shit was terrifying.
It's the threat of something happening. It scares you intrinsically. You don't like. There's no need for a jump scare in that situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're already scared. And in the Amnesia monster, you're like, you jump up on this, like, this is the greatest part. Like, you find, I can jump up on the crate, and then I'm safe. Now what the fuck do I do? Yeah. Like, you're stuck on this crate with this thing chasing you. Yeah. You have to keep progressing, or the game's just over for you there.
Right. Yeah.
And the fear just keeps going. It doesn't stop scaring you. It's fear.
I would say similarly, Silent Hill 2 does a lot of those things for me.
Oh yeah, like that.
I'm thinking of the chain link fence monsters, like when you're walking around and there's all of a sudden the ground is like chain link for some reason. and then there's these dudes like clinging to the bottom of it, chasing after you, and I don't even know if they can hurt me or what. But I'm like, this is fucked up. What's happening right now?
I'm gonna run now.
That's good. That's good horror.
And
It's a good horror.
Your radio is screeching. You've got crazy noise filter. You can't really see where you're going. You don't know where you're going. It's dark. Everything's creepy as hell. There's shadows bouncing everywhere. Like, that's chaos, and it's also completely ununderstandable for a while, which is what Austin was saying before, and that really does help a lot for horror, is to not understand the situation. Throws you into a whole new level of inability to cope, which is what you want to do. You want to put the player off to being able to understand and get themselves out effectively.
And that's hard. That's difficult to do, and it's, I think, why people go to the jump scares is because it's easy. Trying to actually incite terror into someone playing a video game in their safe house, apartment, whatever, is difficult. But when it's done well, it's amazing. It's really, really cool to see.
Aren't there two levels, though, with horror now, where it's like people that actually want to try and understand horror as it is in film and like provide pacing and provide a good experience and entertainment, and then there's the people who just see, well, this is what's popular and this is how we scare people, and they don't ever look at it like an art form or entertainment beyond just this is how we do it. Yeah. And they see that through YouTube Let's Plays and things. And then they make games based on it, which has created this new horror culture that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with horror anymore. Yeah. Do you agree?
Oh, yeah, totally. I think the YouTube community has definitely influenced. I mean, I don't think AAA developers even make horror games anymore, really. I mean, I think the last bastion of, like, what could be considered horror is Dead Space.
Bethesda's doing one. What's it called? An Enemy
the
Within.
Kojima game we were making fun of.
Yeah, Silent Hill. Yeah.
What is it called? Enemy Within or something? What's the new Bethesda game? I think it comes
Evil
out.
Within.
Evil
Within. Yeah.
Comes out in like a week or very soon.
Does it really?
Yeah, it's mid-October, I think.
Oh, okay.
Right. That's the only one I've heard.
But yeah, but like for the most part, they've kind of stayed away from it compared to like the indie developers that do it. And then, you know, it's obviously marketed towards a group of YouTubers that do horror games, and you know, I can't fault them for that. Yes and no. I mean,
like that they have the power to determine the trajectory of an entire genre of entertainment based on the fact that that's what's getting hits on YouTube. That's so weird to me.
It's how it's always been with everything else.
Really, I mean, we mentioned PT, the PT demo. Yeah. PT to me was this weird combination of everything good and everything bad that we've been talking about in horror games. Like, I don't understand. It got so many things right, yet still did the jump scare thing.
It did do, like, when we were watching that guy play it, it was really actually creepy a lot
terrifying.
of the time.
It was really fucking scary.
The problem with it was the pacing. That was the big issue with the game, or the demo.
No, okay, I watched other people play it, Rob. That guy was just a fucking idiot. That guy was just stupid.
Maybe if I just stare at the radio for 30 minutes, then maybe something will happen. But also, like, even so, like, the pacing, you gotta force a player to progress, I think, in a horror game, because in a movie, you know, it just progresses, right? Like, you have to watch the movie progress, right? When you allow a player to sit and analyze and look at the you know, basically look behind the curtain and figure out that it's actually just a tiny midget controlling the great giant head of Oz, then, you know, it kind of kills the whole illusion of horror. So I think even so, the pacing of the demo wasn't very good. But, and by the way, take everything I say with a grain of salt. I haven't played it, but I've watched people play it. But also, the rest of the shit it does was really actually genuinely kind of creepy. Like, I was creeped out just watching.
Yeah, I'll say that I'll go back a little bit when I said, but I think there are jump scares, like you said, that can be good.
Yeah.
When they don't go by the 80% of the screen rule. Like, there's a point in PT where you're just walking, and of course I'm sure I'm gonna spoil it, people. If you haven't seen PT, I'm sorry. It's been everywhere on YouTube.
It's a demo. It's like 20 minutes long. You're not missing anything.
And you go through this hallway over and over, and things change over and over, and you're kind of put into this safety net. Like, you've gone through this hallway so many times, you pretty much you start to guess where the jump scares are going to be. But at the one point, you're just walking through, and I think it's either a mirror or a light comes crashing down over the balcony, and it's probably really fucking scary, and it would constitute a jump scare because it's just a loud noise. But it's not. There's no crescendo of music. There's nothing popping out at you. It's off to your left when you're walking by it, so it's not even really in your screen. but it scares you, and you're like, oh shit, what the hell is that? And you're scared, and I say that's a good jump scare.
Yeah, if you couple
and hold on, bonus is that if you look up to where the mirror falls down, you can see a zombie dude just sitting there staring at you, and he just walks away. That's fucking terrifying.
That is creepy.
That is really scary.
If a jump scare is coupled properly with a good environment or a scary atmosphere, then I think it is fine if you don't use it as a crutch. A good example of like really, really bad jump scares are like what I said with White Noise, where it's like a dog barks and loud music plays, and it's like, oh, I jumped, but that's not scary because it's a fucking dog. Like, it's just a dog. Like, yeah, you played a loud noise. That's great. I can do that. I can make everyone in this video jump watching this video. Like, I could just randomly, bash some cymbals together.
Yeah, but you won't.
But I won't. but I can, and that's why it's just and that a lot of times with horror movies and horror games, that's what the scares amount to. And that's shitty because it's like that's not good. That's just you just made somebody jump. That's nothing.
I want to jump in about PT also before we get off that topic. I think that the one major thing that it did wrong, aside from what you pointed out, was that it took away too much logic to a point where you don't necessarily feel like there's any actual progression anymore.
Right.
You kind of feel like you're at the whims of scripting.
It's like a roller
You
coaster.
should have a level of autonomy as a player to be able to feel like, okay, I'm a human being. I understand the limitations of what that means. I can open and close doors, I can move objects around, but I can't, like, lift up houses, I can't fucking break down walls for the most part.
Right.
In that game, you literally can't do anything except for walk.
Right.
And randomly you can interact with some objects.
Yep.
And then you'll also break down the barriers of reality where you're walking through a door that will loop back into its own geometry, and you'll start back at the other end of this big circular hallway. Those things can work at times, but if that's all you do, it starts to become like you're blurring the line of reality of what am I doing? Why am I a human being in this scenario? There's no reality to contrast with the irreality, if that's even a word.
I guess for a demo, it's not as bad, because I'm sure the game will be nothing like that since it's going to be upside down.
Right, we're all hoping, and I'm just critiquing it based on what I've seen of it.
Yeah.
But it serves to stand as a stand-in for all of horror in this example. That I don't like when people take you out that far away from reality. You should have some level of understanding.
Amnesia 2 kind of does that, where it's like you kind of lose autonomy for the most part in that game, compared to like Amnesia 1. And it's like, it's sort of, it's that you're not playing with the medium properly. Now, a lot of people would say, like, stuff like Dear Esther, right? Like, a lot of people call into question whether that's a game or not. I mean, you're playing it, it's a game. I think what it is maybe it doesn't play with the medium of game well. Like for instance, what's his face? The guy who wrote The Watchmen and V for Vendetta and all that guy. What's his name?
I wouldn't be able to tell you.
Me either.
Watchmen.
Wait, so it doesn't matter if it's a
Alan
game,
Moore.
though. We can just call it interactive media if that's going to be a point of contention.
No. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that, like, it doesn't matter if that your distinction of what you call a game and not a game does not actually matter. It doesn't have any relevance into, like, whatever a thing is. That's, like, whatever. That doesn't really matter. But I will say that it doesn't necessarily play with the medium properly. So the example that I was going to use was Alan Moore, right? Alan Moore made a bunch of, like, really, like, genre and medium defining works of art in the graphic novel field, right? He made a Watchmen. He did a bunch of amazing stuff. Watchmen is a good example, though, because he hates when anyone ever makes a movie of his books. He will never, ever get behind a movie. He's not going to do any press for it. He doesn't do anything with it. He does not like anyone doing anything based on his graphic novels. And the reason that he says that is because he does things in his books that you can only do in that medium. You can only do it in graphic novels. Like, there's, like, some things, like, you see it in adaptations all the time. Like, some things from books don't translate well into movies, and some things from like graphic novels don't translate well into games and stuff. And he specifically, like, hones his craft in a way that he wants to play with the medium that he's using. And games are very, very different from movies. A lot of games try to emulate movies a lot of the time, and that's fine here and there. But the thing is, you really got to play with what the medium is if you want to make a very good game, something that you can't experience by watching entirely, really, you know?
I gotta call you out on calling it good. It's a subjective thing in that case. I actually thought Dear Esther was really fine. I had no
I
problems
don't
with
have
it,
a problem
really.
with Dear Esther either. I'm just saying that, like, they didn't play with the medium of game very much. Like,
And I'm saying that doesn't matter because who cares if we call it a game or not?
and why you see you're misrepresenting me. I didn't even say that. I don't care whether or not anyone calls it a game or not. I think it's a game. But I'm just saying that, like, that doesn't really matter. I'm just saying that the game itself doesn't really play with the medium of video game very well, because
Right, but you're calling it a video game.
Yeah.
And I'm saying it doesn't even matter if it's a video game. I'm calling it interactive art or media.
Okay, that's fine.
In this
That's
case.
literally that
So
has
look at
nothing
it
to
like
do
an
with my
art
point.
installation.
Yeah, but
No,
I'm just saying that
it does.
No, it really doesn't. Like, whatever someone describes something as,
You're holding it to a standard of a game,
Well,
right?
I mean, I guess, yeah, I suppose.
And I'm holding it to a standard of art. Those are two different ways to look at the same thing. You have preconceptions that come along with games because of how you've kind of been indoctrinated to play them. But if you look at it from a different frame of reference, they don't have to have the same rules.
I mean, I guess so. I mean, you can make a movie of a bunch of text on a screen and like it slowly pans through the text, and technically you could say that while that's a movie, it's just viewable media as well. But I mean,
Sure.
people purchase it as a film, and people purchase Dear Esther as a game. So, like, I don't know. I was just saying that it didn't really. I'm just talking about games that don't really use the medium entirely to its fullest as it can be, and especially in reference to horror games, where they rely on scripted events or things like that, and stay away from emergent elements, which is, I think, one of the crucial parts of a video game, really. So.
Okay, I mean, I
Essentially
agree that can be good, but I just don't like to look at it in such black and white terms as good or bad. I mean, it's personal preference whether or not
I
you
didn't say
think
it was good or
emergent
bad.
qualities are good.
Like I said, I didn't say it was good or bad. I'm just saying that, like.
Well, you're weighting it towards that is the right way a media piece is used in that context. That it's not doing something correctly given that it's a game.
Well, it's not
right?
that it's
That's
not
an
doing.
assertion.
No, I'm not saying that. Like, I'm saying that Watchmen is good because it plays with the medium, right? Like, that is a good thing that it does. That doesn't mean that comics that don't play with the medium are bad necessarily. They're not inherently bad because they don't play
But
with
they're
the medium.
further
They
from
just
the
don't
ideal,
do
in
it.
your opinion.
No, not necessarily. They just don't do it. It's just a different thing. It's a good aspect of a thing for a thing to do, to play with the medium properly. Like, there's stuff to do in a movie and that you can't do in
It's a
in
good
books and
thing
stuff.
for it to do. That means you're saying it's good.
I'm saying the act of playing with the medium itself, yes, is good. It's creative and innovative, and it's good. Yes, it's a good thing.
Okay,
But
so
that
to be
doesn't
more
mean-
creative and innovative means to enable ideology towards whatever you feel this optimistic version of this is.
What do you
Which
mean
means you're
exactly?
saying it's good or bad.
I don't. Well, no. There's like loads. There's hundreds of games that I play all the time that don't specifically use things that you can only do in a video game, and I still really like them. I still think they're really good. I'm just saying that this is a good aspect of it. It's like the difference between a horror game that just takes you along a rail, or a horror game that lets you explore and progress and not use jump scares and stuff. Like it like there's a difference. I mean, people can find one thing good and the other thing not as good, but I'm just saying that, yes, I think adding more things that play with the specific medium is good. It's a good thing. It's a good bullet point to add on top of the features of the game.
To help illustrate Rob's point, I think he's saying that Dear Esther isn't bad, but a game like Journey, which is similar, would be better because it is more of a game.
I know what you're
I
saying.
wouldn't say
I'm not
it's necessarily better either. I would
missing
just
the
say,
argument.
I would just say that the elements that define Journey are good elements, like emergent gameplay and stuff that you can only do in a video game. like it does in that game, and those are the aspects that make that game good. There are other aspects that make things like experiences like Dear Esther good, or experiences like Proteus good. I mean, there are a lot of other aspects that make those things good. I'm not saying it's like a catch-all absolute kind of thing where you have to mess around with the medium in order for it to be a good thing. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that doing that is good. It does add to the value of a game, is what I'm saying.
And I was only arguing that you were defining it through the context of using the word game, where I feel like a lot of times if you talk about a game like Dear Esther or Gone Home, that's not always necessarily productive or useful.
Okay, again, you're making an argument for like a semantic thing, and that's not really. I don't care what it is. You could call it whatever you want to call it, a blueberry.
No, it only
sandwich.
matters because you were calling it game based on things we already understand games to be. That's all.
It's an interactive form of thing where the player has a level of autonomy. Where there is a player and interactions happen within the world. Like that's all it is. You can call it a blueberry sandwich if you want. You can call it whatever you want. A backwards T-Rex. That's fine.
I don't
care.
start calling video games backwards T-Rex.
Backwards T-Rex.
You could call them a backwards T-Rex by all means. Maybe Dear Esther is a backwards T-Rex.
Did you see
That's
that
fine.
new backwards T-Rex that came out the other day? Hell yeah, man! I'm gonna play it tonight.
Either way,
Right
whether
on.
or not it's called a backwards T-Rex or a video game, it still is interactive in the same way that other video games are, and things that you can do in Dear Esther are things that you can do in Call of Duty. Because they are still defined by the medium by which they work, right? So it's...
And I actually think that there's two separate mediums that converge on occasion. There's interactive works of art, and then there's video games that happen to also occupy the same space. And I think sometimes it becomes difficult to distinguish the two. And I'm not sure that it necessarily matters where you classify them, but sometimes it does if you're trying to go for ideals. That's all. It's not a big deal.
I guess, yeah. I don't know.
Because I come from things more from the art side, but I also have a lifelong experience of playing video games. So, like, I get that there are two different ways to look at them. And sometimes people only see one to get to the other, but they're two discrete paths.
I'm not saying that Dear Esther needs to have, like, a high score or, like, leaderboards or anything. Like, it doesn't need to do
Well, what would have
any
made
of those
it
things.
better for you, just out of curiosity? What would have made it more akin to the things that you want it to be in, ideal form?
I don't know. That really wasn't what I was talking about. I never even said that Dear Esther was bad. I'm just saying that it didn't particularly play with the medium of backwards T-Rexing at all, really. It just sort of, you just walking through the world and hearing a story like that, and that's fine. I mean, you can have that. That's an experience that people can have, and it doesn't need to play with the medium. But it didn't play with the medium, and it's the only statement I'm making. Whether someone finds it subjectively good or bad is whatever. It doesn't really pertain to my experience with a particular game. Like, a lot of games don't need to play with, like, Geometry Wars. I love Geometry Wars. I think that's a great game. It's a really well-made game. It doesn't really play with the medium very well. It doesn't like defy.
That's a whole different way to think about it.
Yeah,
I don't even think I understand what that means in that context, actually.
Yeah, actually, that's a bad example, also. So, but I'm just saying that there are things that you can do in a game that you can't do in a movie, and playing at those things is good. It's a good thing.
No, I like the Geometry Wars thing is really interesting because I think in a lot of ways that is almost the idealized version of what a video game might have been imagined to be in some cases.
Maybe.
So,
I think Geometry Wars is sort of like a toy a lot of the time. More than necessarily what you would define something like. It's not particularly comparable to, like, Dear Esther, which is a completely different experience.
Oh, I like this. So we've got toys on one side and we've got interactive media on the other, and where they converge in the entire gradient and spectrum of those variables is where all games lie.
Yeah, they're both of them are part of the same medium.
Whoa.
They totally are part of the same medium.
We just figured out how to classify all video games in a new context.
Dang.
So Dear Esther's on one end, Geometry Wars is on the other end, and everything is in between.
Yeah.
We did it, guys. We did it, right?
Actually, I'm kind of happy that we just figured that out.
That actually is, I think, a pretty fair scale. It's like the difference. It really is the difference between video games, the widest.
Wow, yeah,
range.
I just got it too. Actually, wow.
That you could classify
You have
a game
on one
based
side
on
the
how,
gamiest game, and on the
Yeah.
other side the least gamiest game. Yet they
Yeah.
all fall under the same idea.
I
Internally.
definitely agree that
Those-
semantically the classification of the word video game is not particularly fitting given today, but it's just the word that people use. I was just saying that the semantic justification for whether a thing is a thing, it doesn't really matter. Like arose by any other name, whatever.
I don't
It's
mean
just-
to keep mischaracterizing you, and I wasn't trying to when I said that, and that wasn't necessarily what I was trying to hit in that conversation, but it kept coming back to words, and I think it was just my own fault for not being able to articulate what I was trying to say properly.
Yeah. But it's
On a
yeah.
I didn't want it to be about semantics, is what I'm trying to say, and it ended up being anyway.
Right.
completely related note, I found Dear Esther to be a little bit, I don't know, full of itself.
Was
As,
it?
yeah.
I really liked it,
A lot of art's
as of
pretentious
course you would
sometimes.
expect me to say, right?
No, I just
I
the writing was very. It seemed intentionally silly at times.
think it was.
Oh
too.
yeah, it had a little bit of that Destiny thing where they were referencing things you intentionally weren't meant to know. That's kind of just pretentiousness in general.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it just
happens.
seemed really like random. Like, oh, you go through this thing and then there's chemistry all over the walls because it just looks cool, I guess.
Yeah.
No, it made sense.
Art can be
They tied
pretentious
that
and
into the
also
story.
good, like American Beauty. I think it's a brilliant film. It's extremely pretentious. Like, holy shit. There's points of the movie where you're just like, oh man, really? Like, this is like straight out of film school kind of thing is what you just did here. But you know, it's an excellent piece of art. But it's extremely pretentious.
I
But
guess
it's
that's how
still good.
I'll classify Dear Esther then, because it was very beautiful. Beautiful. It was very beautiful.
Beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Beautiful,
No,
yeah.
it was very visually appealing, and again, just the combination of the writing and the
Did you finish it?
yeah. I mean, it's very short, very very short.
Well, it's just important to say because, like, if you didn't finish it, the whole story lies in the climax.
I didn't
Story
get
of
it.
my life.
I guess maybe that's part of it. You
Oh,
kind of
okay.
just, I don't know.
Maybe try it again one day. I don't know. It didn't seem like it was inaccessible to me for some reason.
Well, I remember reading that the dialogue is played at random, like all the snippets of dialogue
Oh.
don't actually
That's
have.
yeah, that could kind of mess up your experience then, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I might be wrong, but I remember reading something about that.
Well, I thought there were certain fixed points of plot that were always the
There
same,
might
and then
be.
there was certain parts that could be variable.
There might be, but I'm basing off of something I read. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. It's just I don't know. Like I look at a game like Journey, and I think it does everything that Dear Esther does times 1,000 to me.
Well, it's
I don't
obviously
know.
less relatable. It's not a human story.
No, but it does. It's the same kind of. It's just it's a it's a rail. It guides you through this place on your
in
own.
a way,
and
you could argue that it is.
is what.
I'm sure you
A
can
human
metaphorically
story.
relate anything to a human
Sorry,
story.
yeah.
It's a story of solitude, so of course, yeah, you can
Right.
relate it to that.
Yeah.
But it's extremely visually appealing, and you're just kind of walking through this place, and there's stuff, and you're just meant to see the stuff. But it has the same time gameplay mechanics that help you along and tie into the story. And I'm not faulting the Eraser for not having that. It's just I feel like that's a much better example of the same thing.
I think Journey actually is. Oh, sorry. Well, I'll just say that there's one thing I don't have a further point, but like I think Journey is a good example of a game that does play with the medium of backwards T-Rex very well. So go on. What were you gonna say?
And I was just going to say that we get lost and trapped in this whole appeal of what I find personally appealing. And then I feel like sometimes we attribute that accidentally to notions of good and bad. And I don't think you did that, but I think that could be where that argument could go.
Maybe, I don't know. I don't have particularly strong feelings about either game, negatively or positively. So I feel like I have sort of an unbiased opinion. I wasn't like, oh, Journey Game of the Year. Oh, Dear Esther, 0 out of 10. But like, and again, it's kind of an unfair comparison because I think Dear Esther was just made by one or two guys, and Journey had a team and all that. But I'm just basing it merely off of what the game tries to accomplish, and what each game does to accomplish that. I mean, yeah, you could even say both games have similar stories where they have kind of ambiguous endings, and kind of it's about the experience as opposed to the end.
Did you like Gone Home?
You know, I think we've talked
I
about
can't
this.
remember anymore because we have talked about
I
it several times.
I enjoyed Gone Home for what it was worth, but I didn't like the one thing that I didn't like about it was that well, for one, I think it was a little expensive for what it was, but that the people have argued
That
that to there
aside,
and back. But also, I feel like it was building towards a climax that whatever the climax might have been, I felt like the game was purposely building one that wasn't there.
right,
They like, and I felt fooled at the end. Like I didn't at the very beginning of the game, I didn't expect any kind of huge climax, but the way the ending was represented, of course, I guess not really a spoiler, the attic being the last place you go, the whole way they built that made me feel like they were trying to have this climactic ending, whether it be very climactic or I just felt like,
right.
oh, at the end. I was like, all right,
Well, I was trying to understand where you fall on this scale because Gone Home and Dear Esther have so many things in common, as I'm sure you can figure out.
right.
But Dear Esther is even less accessible in that there's less player interaction through the
Yeah,
whole
Gone
thing.
Home
Plus, it's
has
less relatable,
Gone
obviously.
Home. You're meant to look around, and it is. Yes, I would put it higher than Dear Esther, and that it does. Do and I like that. I enjoyed. You could just pick up items and examine them. You put the cassette in the thing. It had a lot to it that was very good, but
You know,
at the same time, I was unhappy with the way it portrayed itself, uh, and its uh, progression of the story.
here's an example of something, because like earlier you were likening me saying that like a thing that plays with medium uh, means that it's good, and something that doesn't play with medium is bad. Here's an example of a game that the whole premise of it is playing with medium of video games. It's something that you can only do in a video game that you can't do in other things, which is
Say Dota 2.
no, the Stanley Parable. Stanley Parable.
Sure.
That whole game is about like
Yeah, that's a great
playing.
example. I'm glad
Yeah.
you brought that up.
And I, you know what, I have a little bit of a sour taste over Stanley Parable. It wasn't as good as I wanted it to be for a variety of reasons, one of which being that it had fail states, which kind of went against the general theme of the
Right.
game, I thought. But beyond that, like just because it does that doesn't mean that it's inherently good versus something that doesn't necessarily. Like I like Uncharted a lot, and that doesn't really play around with the medium that much. It's like half a movie, and I like that probably more than I like Stanley Parable. And by the way, I shouldn't say that I don't like Stanley Parable. I do like Stanley Parable. I think the writing is excellent. I mean, the narration is
Yeah.
wonderful, and it does a lot of things that are really cool, and it bends game, and it's the whole point, and it's fun, and it's it's self-aware,
It's
and that's interesting, but I don't like it that much.
the dimension that's added by being a video game is player interaction.
Yep.
And every part of this discussion that gets away from player interaction is the part where it departs from being a video game. Like it's worth saying just that simply, because you look at a game like Gone Home or Dear Esther, where it's a bunch of boxes connected with lines, and somewhere in that line is dialogue. But then you also extend that to a game like Call of Duty, and it's the exact same formula, only it's more granular player control.
Mm-hmm.
So then you bring in something like Stanley Parable, and it's still the same formula, only you can make decisions that actually have meaningful choices.
Right.
Whereas in Call of Duty, every step you take is towards an eventual goal, and it ratchets you forward regardless of what your actual choice is.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's worth mentioning that the narrative plays a big role in this whole thing, and being forced to move forward makes it very much like a movie. And I think that's where the distinction comes across that we're not necessarily bringing up.
The thing that it is, and if we're talking about, I'm just going to use backwards T-Rex here. If you use that, the only difference between a video game and a movie, inherently, is that you have some level of autonomy, and that even totally boils down to turning off the game as well. Like, that's also a valid choice that you can make. And in fact, Stanley Parable plays with that idea, too.
Right.
And that's a completely valid choice that you can make. Stop playing the game. Like, that is a valid choice. And that is something that is fundamentally different from a movie. Even if you are basically on a rail in Call of Duty, you still have to move that rail forward, whereas a movie is just on a rail and it's just going. And you still have the valid choice of stop watching, but that's the only interaction that you can have with it. Whereas games can play with that fundamental aspect of, or backwards T-Rexes can play with that fundamental aspect of their interactivity. And that doesn't necessarily...
Thinking about, too, Metal Gear Solid, where you could plug in the controller into the other port for the Psycho... what the hell was it called? Psycho Mantis fight?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Banjo-Kazooie, where they had the stop and swap thing where you had to actually take the cart out and put it back in.
Right.
There was like a certain amount of time it could be out of the slot. Like, those are really interesting things that people don't really think about using the hardware like that.
Yeah, and that's actually a very good example of, like, that's something you can only do in a video game. You can't do that in a book. You can't do that in a comic. You can't do that in a movie. You can only do that in a video game.
Books had choose your own adventure.
Yeah, but I mean, but you, like, functionally, I actually would almost consider those, like, more like games than they are like books. But, you know, again, it's kind of a semantic thing.
If we want to, like, continue to trod down the scale here of you know, Geometry Wars, and I think the next jump up would be a game like Myst, where you're driving along the story, but pretty much it's a puzzle game. Like, you have puzzles in between the story that guide you along and keep you going through. And
I don't think what kind of interactions you have matter. It's more just about the structuring of the interactions.
Yeah, like I said,
like,
I don't think
Geometry Wars
matters.
is dense. Your esters spread out.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think that is a fundamental judge of quality of the thing, but things that, like, playing with that is inherently, I think, a good thing. That doesn't mean you have to have that thing for it to be defined as good, but playing with that is good.
So you're looking at it like neutral and good. It's not guilty.
Right, yeah, basically. Like, it's like...
It's additive.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, like a game... Like a Magic the Gathering, this game, I guess.
The hell's that game?
What game?
This game, like, it plays just fine as it is. Would it be better with a better UI? Well, okay, this is a terrible example because I mean,
this game's awful. But
like things that I don't know,
Uh-oh.
things that have.
I thought we lost you.
No, it's like a good. If a thing is good, it doesn't necessarily need to have this thing, but it is good if you do have it. Like, that is just a good thing. I don't know if that sort of makes sense. Yeah, it basically what you. Basically, just what you said, yeah. It's either good or neutral. It's like pretty much. It's just me saying a bunch of words very poorly that basically just define exactly what you said. So, that exact thing. But yeah, you know.
Backwards T-Rexes are fun.
I like backwards T-Rexes. I really like The Watchmen too. You guys should read The Watchmen if you never read it. It's really good.
Watch.
I hate the movie.
Yeah, the movie... You know why the movie's really terrible, Nick? Is because nothing... Alan Moore... That one is, I think, a very good example of why Alan Moore doesn't like movie representation... Like, movie adaptations of his stuff. Because things just don't translate properly. That is a brilliant comic. A brilliant genre-defining graphic novel that, like, changed the way that graphic novels were regarded because of the things that he did with the medium. And the movie just can't do those things. Movies can do other things that play with the medium, like Kubrick does a bunch of stuff that you can only do in movies, and that is a defining characteristic of his films, and that is what makes his movies good. That doesn't mean that every movie has to do that in order to be good, but that is what made his films good, and that is what makes Alan Moore's works good, because he plays with the medium.
Can I ask out of ignorance? I don't actually know what things graphic novels can do that are strictly in that medium. I mean, I imagine I understand, but I don't really get it. Like, it's just a comic book, more serious, right?
No, not exactly. It's the way that panels are structured. It's the way that information is delivered. It's the way that he translates visual information into, I guess, imagination. And it's stuff that you can only do in what he did that you can't do the same way anywhere else.
Okay. I just feel skeptical of the amount of hype that you've put on this one specific series, because I've heard people say this all the time, and I just don't understand what could be so mind-blowing about a graphic novel.
Well, I think the limitation of like I don't read graphic novels, so I could be wrong, but I think the limitation of the medium helps to further other aspects of what you could do with it. Like in the same way in a book, you don't have pictures, so you have to be very descriptive. I think a comic book is like that, but different because you have panels for you have to show frames of action as opposed to actual videos. So you have to illustrate those specific frames very well and very specifically.
The way that the intake of information, whether visual or literary, I guess, is fundamentally different in a graphic novel than it is in a book. And there are things that you can only do in that medium that you just can't do in a book. If they translated... Also, the thing about Watchmen is there are parts that are filled with just straight-up prose, like just full pages of just, like, this is basically a novel. And that's another thing that he does, is he floats around with that idea in that you can do that with a graphic novel. Like, it can be a book sometimes, and it can be a graphic novel other times, and the joining and twisting of that kind of makes it a more intriguing experience as well.
I guess that's the thing I wasn't getting. Like, I mean, I know this, but at the same time, it didn't really click with me that, like, graphic novels are half novel, half comic book. I was not really understanding what the even... I just thought it was like, we classify comic books for adults as graphic novels for some reason. Because they're more serious, and they don't have Batman in them most of the time.
I think the more specific connotation of, like, a graphic novel, and this is going to be another, like, is it a game, is it interactive media, but, like, the description of, like, a graphic novel is just, basically, it's a... micro comic. So, like, I guess the difference between television and film.
Micro comic.
Like a graphic novel is more like a graphic novel is to film what a comic book is to television, or like an episode of a television show or something. Like Watchmen, I think appeared in so the Watchmen had like.
Sorry, I'm just being honest.
Watchmen had like 4 issues or something, right? But then it was just put into one big book. But it's essentially it's an experience that you can experience in one go, sort of. I don't know, like Spider-Man. Spider-Man's a comic book, right? Or I mean, there was like Amazing Spider-Man is a comic book, right? And you can read them out of order. You won't really get a full scope of what the story is, but you can read any edition.
Uncle
they're
Ben, no,
yeah,
I shot web.
Yeah,
that's pretty much the story.
Exactly, they're bite-sized experiences. You go through them, and they're serialized. Whereas a graphic novel is an experience that you just like a book, I guess. I don't know. It's hard to. It's hard to explain exactly, but I think that's probably one of those things that...
Oh, I love that you don't even know either.
In the comic book world, I'm sure that's the same thing that video game world has. Like, is this a game? Well, this isn't really a game. Well, is this a graphic novel?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I'm sure that
I'm sorry to anyone I've offended, by the way. This is honestly out of ignorance. I've never been much for comic books or graphic novels. I may have even maybe never really read one completely.
You really should, because there's some brilliant shit out there.
The only thing close to like I've read like the first 4 or 5 Walking Dead comics.
I think that's a graphic novel, isn't it? Like
I don't know actually.
I think it's like
maybe.
an 8-part graphic novel.
What are film novellas then?
Look, man, that's some fucking diagonal triceratops shit, all right?
That is a diagonal triceratops.
Basically,
that's what that is.
That's pretty much that. But seriously, if you guys aren't into comic or like into graphic novels and stuff, start on Watchmen. It's really good. And I'm saying this not just to you guys, also to anyone watching at home. Yeah, I mean, well, it's one of those things. It's like you know, you're not like I never really read books either. Like I didn't really enjoy the experience of reading books.
Reads? Am I right?
I mean, I never really read too many books. I never really liked books as a medium. It wasn't particularly interesting to me. It partly had to do with the way that I was raised on books and what books I was forced to read that were just like, this isn't very interesting. Yeah. But now I've been reading more stuff.
High school and middle school beats reading out of you. Like God, like I hope you don't like kind of like reading, because if you go to middle school or high school, they'll make you fucking hate
Some
it.
people really get into it though from that, oddly enough. Like the high school books are like, man, I love those books. I've heard people say that before.
There are some
Just
really some
man.
like Catcher in the Rye is, I think, a brilliant book. I actually really like that book.
I didn't read that one. We would read. What was the one
read
that
that.
you really hated? It was Don Quixote. Like, I get that it's a good book, but holy shit, that thing is heavier than like my dog. All right, like that thing.
Well, it's like
It's a
books
fucking
are
dictionary.
books are an art form, right? Like, and I think classrooms a lot of the time, it's like when people
Beat
want
it
to go
out.
to it's like, you know, people choose to go to film school. Like, I went to film school, and you know, when
Why
I
do you say it like
experience
that?
a movie, well, because
said
I'm
I
just
went to
emphasizing-
film
yeah,
school.
It's
right? Film
it's
school.
it's just a way to emphasize what that is, because when I went to film school and we watched a film, we watched it under an analytic eye in which we were dissecting it and trying to figure out exactly what's happening in any scene. It's not a good way to derive specific, like, unless you are particularly interested in deconstructing that piece of art because you're passionate about it. It's not a very good way to experience that art. It's just not. It's not, like, if you don't like films,
Fragments the
you would
shit out
not.
of it.
Yeah, exactly. You would not enjoy it. And books are an art form, but in school, for whatever reason, they try to change it into a I don't know. Like, you're deconstructing
the
these
thing I
things,
hated the
and
most.
it kind of takes away the experience of the art. And that's actually what I'm discovering now with my Kindle, as I'm reading more stuff, and I really like it. I'm discovering the art behind it beyond the deconstruction and the learning about the things that they do and all.
A good book drags you in. A good book, you get like 5 pages, and you're like, "Fuck, that was 5 pages." I feel like a paragraph. You get like, it's like a game when you're playing a game, and 2 hours later, you're like, "Whoa, how the fuck did 2 hours go by?" Like that's a good game. The same way it's a good book. When you're sitting there and you have this fucking sheet next to you to answer questions about this shit, that, like, no, like,
Yeah.
and some of the questions are so stupid. Like, what do you think the author was trying to do? I don't give a fuck what the author was trying to do. Sally bought some fucking seashell. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
she bought some seashells. I don't give a shit what the author thought that he was thinking about when he like that's. Shut up.
It's the wrong
Yeah.
time to subject people to that. You
Exactly,
need
yeah.
context in your life before you can then espouse that context through the filter of something else.
Right.
When you're in high school, you're still just learning about everything. Like reading a bunch of experiences from adults that have been written throughout the ages of all different, world conditions and different travels and different relationships and all these experiences. You've never had any of those. So how are you going to look at this and break it down in a meaningful way that you even want to carry yourself through that story when you have nothing to relate to it?
Yeah.
And then you're going to break it apart and be asked to try and deconstruct the motivations of someone who's had all these experiences that you don't have any concept of.
Yeah. Imagine your first experience with, like, Pulp Fiction was that, you were in 6th grade or something, and then you watched you every day in class you watched a new scene and then talked about it, and then had a quiz about, like, so what did Marcellus Wallace say after Bruce Willis was like, we good now? And what did he really mean by that? It's like, it's not a good way to experience that, and it kind of sours you on the experience of that art form.
Agreed. And one of the worst, like, if you don't want to play a video game, but you have to, it's gonna be boring, but it's not the end of the world. If you have to watch a TV show that you don't want to watch, if you're stuck with someone, you can watch it. It's not the end of the world. It's gonna be boring. You're not gonna like it, but you can do it. If you are forced to read a book that you don't want to read, it is the most grueling, obnoxious, like, oh my god, it could slow time. It's how you basically slow down time, is read a book
Being
you don't
forced to
want to read.
activate your imagination against your own will.
Right.
Yeah.
Which
It's
is draining.
awful. And I think that high school and middle school really, like I said, beats the enjoyment of literature out of kids. Because even on like another note, like, reading is time consuming. You have all this homework to do at school, and then now you have homework and you have to read a book to do the homework that you have to do.
Yeah.
And these are
You're
not
forced
short
to do
books
it,
that
yeah.
they're like it's very
It
they
turns it
really
into
want
work.
you to hate reading. Yeah.
It turns the art into work, which is not fun.
Like when you go to
unless
art
you are
class,
already
they make you
passionate.
paint shit, and that's good. That's how you do art. Like,
Yeah.
But the thing, once you get the vernacular to be able to describe things, and you've had enough experiences that you can look at stuff from another objective level, it doesn't feel so much like work anymore because you can relate things compartmentally to each other. Like with me for indie games, and the fact that I do this every single day, it doesn't really feel like work to me mostly because I've got a lifetime worth of games that I've played to compare everything to. So I just can very easily classify and go, look, that's kind of like that, that's kind of like that. And very quickly, I start to form up a bunch of opinions that aren't even really, I don't even have to try anymore. It really just kind of happens.
Yeah.
But when you're reading and you don't have that yet, and you don't really have experiences, and you don't know how to have the critical lens or mind to be able to break things apart, it's all extra added layers that make it really opaque for you to actually take meaning away from a book.
Agreed.
I think,
Man,
I think a lot
fuck
of times
middle school, am I right?
I think what it is usually those things are when they do the book stuff, the end goal is to teach critical thinking, you know, and which
Right.
is something that people need to learn. Is how to.
But they're doing it
think
at the
critically.
expense of reading.
Exactly. Yes, they're sacrificing literature for the sake of teaching critical thinking, and I don't really know how else you would do it. But I mean, maybe
Debate.
that's just because.
Yeah, I was
probably.
actually going to say the same thing. I feel like if people weren't so touchy about
Skepticism.
controversial subjects, debating those controversial subjects could really help teach thought, critical thinking.
Right, yeah, probably. Yeah,
But that would
Just tell someone to disagree with literally anything.
Yeah.
And then have them come up with, there's not a thing you could tell me that I couldn't find the other side of.
Right.
I think I think it was seventh grade, sixth or seventh grade. Our science class actually did a really cool debate thing where he split these two groups up. I actually didn't even think the whole class participated. It was like 5 people versus 5 people debating this completely. I think it was like this imaginary town wanted to build this. Do something about something, and there were 3 options, and the 3 groups were arguing why their option should be right, and the class voted, and we had to argue this thing that we didn't really know, but we were given information on and what it was, and we had to argue, and we had to think about ways to defeat other arguments and make our arguments look more appealing.
Was it a real thing or an abstract thing? Do you remember?
Abstract?
Oh, okay. That's tougher then, because you can't really relate to an actual issue.
It was like something about doing something about trees, and there was like the fertilizer test, the untested fertilizer thing, or
well, I mean, like the thing you were arguing could be mapped to reality, though.
Yeah, no, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Because
that would be another thing if it was like a math variable thing, and they're like, well, triangles are inherently worth X, but squares are worth X.
It was like an environmental, like each argument had like negatives, like we were basically like lobbying for each argument because we wanted to win.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
And it was very good. It helped a lot, and I think it was a very valuable experience to have. As an example of how critical thinking can be taught in schools. Why did we get on this subject?
Like
we just jump around.
Tangential stuff, yeah. Well,
It
actually,
wasn't tangential. It was critical thinking.
well,
Yeah.
yeah, there you go. But actually, on that note, though, this is an hour and 31 minutes, so we should probably
New record,
Yeah,
high score.
probably, yeah. We should probably
This
wrap
makes
it up.
Magic series like
very-
Geometry Wars more than Diresca.
Exactly.
I want to say that was a very good episode, but you got through a lot of
Yeah, yeah.
topics.
I think that's a
Yeah,
really
I'll just
good...
cut the first 20 minutes.
yeah, just skip the magic part. Yeah.
It's funny because it's true. We were just talking about fucking magic. Who gives a shit about that?
I was trying to have a conversation. You guys were too serious. You couldn't even hear what I was saying.
No,
You
yeah,
cut that part off.
you're completely right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
watching.
It's a good time. Thanks for watching, everybody. Mondays and Fridays.
Mondays and Fridays. See you later, everybody. Like the video. Thumbs up.
Yeah. This is Alpaca Patrol signing out. Peace, fools.
I